I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask that the clerk lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. If I could have a motion in regard to the approval of our agenda for the Tuesday, March 1st, 2016 meeting be approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments? All those in favor? Thank you. If I could have an approval of consent agenda that's in your packet. This consists of minutes, recommendations from special ed, recommendations from the Committee on Preschool, Special Education, and recommendations from the Superintendent for personnel changes. If I could have a motion and second that we approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Any questions? All those in favor? Thank you very much. We have visitor speaking time, and this is the time when we allow for residents who have any concerns or comments to bring to the board. Obviously, these are not related to any particular individual or person, but we do have a form out back if anyone wants to sign that. Has anyone signed up for tonight? Okay. We encourage people to understand that they do have an opportunity to come speak before the board at any meeting. Our student representative comments, Aubrey.
Hello. So this past weekend, Penfield girls basketball won against Hilton on Saturday to claim the Section 5 title, and they won with a score of 54-38, finishing with a near perfect season. And that was one loss, but it wasn't a league match. It was some tournament that they did in New York City. So it doesn't really count. And they played the Section 6 champion this Saturday at 3 at Rush Henrietta. And then also this weekend, 10th grader Frankie Gissendanner, for the second year in a row, claimed the New York State champion title in wrestling. And Parker Kropman finished 3rd overall in his weight class as well. And events tomorrow is Spread the Word National Pledge Day at the high school and Bay Trail. And we're going to celebrate by signing banners during lunch periods, indicating the pledge to refrain from using the R word. And the goal is to spread the end of the word and build awareness and encourage people to discontinue using it. And then this weekend, Bay Trail is putting on Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the musical, at 7 on Friday and Saturday and at 2 on Sunday. And next Friday, the 11th, is sophomore semi-formal at Burgundy Basin. And then lastly, looking a while into the future, the PHS Drama Club is performing Shrek the Musical in 2 weeks, beginning on the 17th.
Wow, a lot of activity. And Willy Wonka, I know they always put on great plays over there. I know we've all been there, so if you have an opportunity to see that, take that opportunity. Any questions for Aubrey? Well, thanks again for connecting us to the school and everything that goes on. We appreciate it. Dr. Putnam?
All right. So for this evening, our superintendent's reports include student and staff honors, the 2016-17 Program 2 budget proposal, and the long-awaited school calendar. So we have the board will have the opportunity to vote on the school calendar for next school year. We have All County Festival. A number of Penfield students were selected to participate in the Monroe County Schools Music Association All County Music Festivals. And we have 4 students from the Junior Senior High Jazz Festival. 28 of our musically talented students were selected to participate in the Senior High Festival. 20 other students were selected to participate in the Junior High Festival, and 31 students were selected to participate in the Elementary Festival. I share numbers instead of all names simply for time. All these names are found on our webpage, and we celebrate these students. I also show numbers because it is a great number of students to have in the Monroe County Schools Music Association All County Festival. We had a fire essay contest winner, Harris Hill 5th grader Zoe Gaynor, Scribner Road 5th grader Amy Gostovic, and Bay Trail 6th grader Catherine Healy were recognized as recipients of the Outstanding Essay Award in the 2015 Monroe County Volunteer Firemen's Association Essay Contest. And those pictures we shared on social media as well as here, and just really great kids, and very proud of them. So congratulations to some of our students. The Vanguard Award, Penfield High School senior Andre Gardner is one of 4 students, I say that, one of only 4 students from across New York State to be named the recipient of the Vanguard Award by the Non-Traditional Employment and Training Program at the Center for Women in Government and Civil Society at the University of Albany. And Andre is currently studying early childhood education through the EMCC program at BOCES, and is Monroe #1's BOCES first winner of the award ever. And so what this award does, and there is some scholarship funds that go along with it, and what it has to do with is celebrate students in what they refer to as careers that are less likely for that gender to go into. And so early childhood education is made up typically of female students. Andre is a male student, obviously, and went through Cobbles and has gone back multiple times to speak at Cobbles to those elementary school students who absolutely love him. I know Andre well. I'm very handsome in that picture, you can tell. And it was amazing to go and celebrate with Andre. You can see in that picture we had the principal from EMCC, his favorite teacher from Cobbles Elementary School, Dr. Maloney, myself, and a teacher from EMCC that went over there to surprise him with the award. So I will note, just in case you see that picture, is that the Penfield Post greatly apologizes. They left some things out in the article they ran, and they refer to EMCC as Eastern Maine Community College. That is not what it is, and so they are rerunning that, and you should see it in this Thursday's Penfield Post again, hopefully with the correction. But it doesn't take away from Andre, and what an amazing award to have. We have another great award, and some of our students is our oratorical competition. Gabby Panko and Bronwyn Pellish, who were both named semifinalists at the Rotary Oratorical Competition on Wednesday, February 24th. They will again present their speeches on the importance of ethics in the life I plan to live at the Rotary District level competition in March. The competition winners have the opportunity to earn a scholarship towards tuition at local colleges. So congratulations to Gabby and Bronwyn. We really are very excited for the work that they do. And just a little historic piece, the Rotary years ago, we had very few people, if any, go through with this award. This is a long-standing contest that the Rotary does across the nation, and we had very few people, if any, sign up. And now we actually have to have thanks to the speech teachers at the high school, the incredible work our speech or public speaking teachers do at the high school, it made it part of the instruction to write this essay and perform this public speaking. And so what they have to do now is they actually have to do like an elimination round at the high school, because they have so many students who have written it. And then a number go off to the Rotary lunch, and they whittle that down to 2. And then our kids are continuing to move on. So it's pretty exciting. The PHS Genocide Museum. The PHS Global History 1 and ELA 9 honors class, which is a combined humanities class, presented their research at a genocide museum on Monday, just yesterday. Students selected a recent event from a troubled area of the world, researched the causes, reactions, and implications of their event, whether their event falls within the definition of genocide, and provided a personal reflection on their research. Teachers Lynn Brooks and Elaine Eckham oversaw this project, and for those of you in the audience on the board, we left out, I did work with Mr. Birkby, the librarian, and Lynn Brooks, and you can see up along the top here, these bookcases, some of the projects were left out. It loses a little bit of its magic because during the museum, the students stand by their presentation and actually speak and answer questions, but it's a great way to bring history alive and to have students work on research in a real world ability as opposed to just writing that research paper. And so we're really proud of our students and our teachers for thinking outside the box with such great things. A couple other pictures of students presenting.
I want to comment on that.
Absolutely.
If I could just say a comment. I was here yesterday, and I know board members have been here in the past, and it was really crowded too, which is great with visitors. But the amazing part was each of the students I asked questions of, because I'm like that, they had the right answers as far as I was concerned, very knowledgeable. And, one of the things I said was, well, why do you think this happened? And it was just amazing how well they did. So I think it's just a credit that we can do that and have that great opportunity here.
That was a good segue to the end of my updates and our honors and celebrations. So I'll turn it back over to Dr. Sansucci, and we're going to look at the budget for next year, instructional budget for next year.
Thank you very much. This is it's called Program 2. This is the second instructional budget presentation. The board previously saw the budget for special areas, so school guidance counselors, nurses, psychologists, social workers, and so on, special education. This portion of the budget's the general ed portion of the budget, the largest portion. But before we begin that, I'm just, as I always do, reflect on the connection between budget and goals. As we design our budget, as we move through this process, we always begin with and key off of the board's three important goals of academic achievement, excellence, partnership, and fiscal responsibility. The budget has to do with all three of those areas, certainly fiscal responsibility, but it's also the financial expression of a program, and you'll see that tonight because we're proposing some changes and expansions in instructional programs. So with that, I just this is where we've been. We began this process in November 3rd, and in yellow in this calendar are the budget presentations that we've completed. So with that, we're through a goodly portion of the budget. Tonight, 31% of the budget's consumed by this portion. We have upcoming BOCES benefits, and we need to adopt on April 19th. This is the largest portion, the largest single portion of our general fund budget. So approximately 31% devoted to general instruction, and it's up 2.4%. So it includes, and you'll see this in more detail, so regular school teaching, teachers in classrooms, K-12, occupational education, libraries, computer services, clubs, and sports. That budget is proposed currently at $28.5 million. That's an increase of approximately $650,000, or 2.4% increase. We'll see this in more detail as we go through how this impacts each of those categories. But there are some significant staffing changes included in this budget, and you have some more detail on this in your packet. But we are proposing an increase of 2 teachers for English as a second language. That's in response to the change mandate. New York State has changed the way that those programs must be offered. They must be offered now in a co-teaching model, and it drives an increase, a mandated increase, and I would also say an unfunded mandated increase in that particular area. And as I say, we're adding 2/10. There are slight changes in this package based on changes in enrollment, 2/10 of a FTE, so that's 2/10 of a FTE, in foreign language, and slight increase in health. Really more important are the addition of a business education teacher at the high school, so that's a second business teacher who will also be able to offer a work-study component that we currently lack. Computer network technician, and you have some data in your packet that talks to that need. So we've added lots and lots and lots of technology in all classrooms in all different kinds of ways, from smart boards to laptops to computer workstations and desks. And at this point, we're finding the need to support those. It's important that we add a computer network technician. You have some data supporting that. We always include in our budget 3 FTE unallocated. Those accommodate changes in schedule and load and unanticipated needs. They're also included in this budget. And finally, we are adding in stipends for assistant coaches. These are coaches that are currently supported by the Booster Club. We are transferring 10 of those stipends to the general fund budget. They were eliminated from the budget. They had previously been in the budget, and they were eliminated from the general fund budget some years ago during the fiscal crisis. We're looking at a 2-year process now of building those back in to get back to where we were. You'll see the effect of that as we work our way through. So this is that $28.6 million budget split up by those categories. And while they all sound the same and they are all very important in their own right, you can see that they just aren't the same size in terms of scale. Regular instruction is the vast majority of that budget. And if we split it up in a different way by the same $28.6 million, again, that previous slide showed it was regular instruction was the majority of it. This slide shows its salary is almost all of it, and that makes sense. We're a people business. Instruction is teachers in front of kids in classrooms. That's staffing, and this budget is all about that. So that's what you see here, salaries, both certified and non-certified. And you can see the other items across the way. So equipment, textbooks, there really is a travel and conference allocation there. You just can't see it in comparison to the other things. Summer schools, charter schools, and so on. Wanted to spend a little bit of time and drill down a little more carefully into the salaries component of the budget. Just pull that apart a little bit. So we'll leave the total budget, and I just want to spend a little bit of time and talk just about that certified salary line. So if I could go backwards, you see about $23 million worth of certified teacher salaries proposed for next year. So what is that? So if we split that $23 million up again, you see that the vast majority of that is in general education. You can see, there are obviously, we are employing teachers in OC-Ed and for the library, the librarians and so on. We do pay coaching salaries and so on, coaching stipends. But really, again, general education at about $22 million, at about 22 of the $23 million. Actually, I'm sorry, 21 of the $23 million. This is how that splits out. So again, we're chopping it up finer and finer and looking at the biggest piece in each one. So of those salaries, you saw general education was the most. Here we see how that splits out, a little bit district-wide in terms of staff that travels between buildings or supports all buildings. Most of it at the elementary school, or the largest share, I should say, at the middle school, or at the elementary school rather, the middle and the high school. Look at it differently. Same numbers again, the same $21.1 million. What does that support? And you can see here the various programs across the school and also how they're changing in this budget. So K-6 classroom teachers, the single biggest bump, that's about 3%. That was the addition last year of some additional elementary school sections, and we're proposing and continuing in this budget for incoming kindergarten sections. That plus an overall increase of about 2% in salaries, you see the difference. English, math, science, and social studies, the single largest other program areas for those 4 cores. Reading, enrichment, so on. You can see the relative spend in teachers for each of those programs across the way. Really nothing more to be said there. You've heard about, I've spoken to the changes that we're making within program in each of those areas. Oh, did I go backwards? Oh, sorry. So to date, this is a summary of where we've been. So that is where we're at with regard to Program 2, or the instructional budget. You can see where we've been and what the presentations have been. This budget overall up 2.4%. Yet to go is BOCES and the budget for benefits. But with those in the near future, we'll be bringing our budget process to an end. We need to adopt so that we can advertise and have our publications and conversations so that people are ready to vote in May. Next steps to be done are we're going to continue BOCES cost analysis. We've just submitted our request to BOCES. We're going to make a few little tweaks and changes. That gets presented at the next board meeting. We always continue to track enrollment, program staffing, so there might be some changes. And also left to be done is assessment information. We're gathering that right now. Because as we move closer to that finish line, we need to begin to project and talk about the revenue side of the budget and where we'll end up with in terms of an estimated tax rate and, first a tax levy, how much we collect, and then finally a rate, how we will collect that. So we're currently in the process of advertising and scheduling the March 10th conversation on education. We've got the BOCES budget review on April 5th of the entire budget. We need to approve and adopt on the 19th, public hearing on the 3rd, and we'll vote on May 17th. I mentioned as we were going through the revenue side of the budget, tonight in your agenda is an item approving and finalizing our tax levy limit. That was submitted to SED and that window closed on the last day of February. We can still make changes, but it's been submitted and is done, and it's at 1.46%. So we'd estimated 1.5%. We're about there. These are the important components of that. A tax-based growth factor. This is what the new bricks and mortar in our community. We're allowed. The formula allows for a change, an increase potentially in the allowable amount of levy based on the real growth in your community. We're at 1.2% or 12% change. That's one of the largest in the county. I'll show you that in just a minute. Allowable levy growth of 1/10 of 1%. That's the 2% tax cap. So the rate of inflation, one is 0.12. The 2% tax cap, the 2% factor for this year is 0.12, 1/10 of 1%. So virtually no inflation. That means essentially a zero in the calculation, that portion of the calculation for the tax cap. Just to remind you, this is fairly unusual for us. Penfield's the bar in red. That's the growth of assessed valuation in the community. The tallest one, I know this is difficult to see, is Rush Henrietta. So we know what development and growth looks like in Rush Henrietta. We're not them, but we are in second place for 1 year. So I think that's an interesting piece of this. This is the calculation. You can see how it works. So last year's prior year levy, and changed for this year is we need to add in re-levies. So that's a very small amount of money, usually about $20,000 for us, that is re-levied in every year based on losses in exemptions when people buy a house partway through the year. If the home had a senior exemption, for example, that needs to be re-levied and adjusted. For the first time this year, now they've changed the rule about that, and it changes the calculation a little bit. So that's, if you're trying to eyeball that as our levy last year, it's not quite, but it is correct. Tax-based growth factor, you work your way through those variables, the changes in payments in lieu of taxes, the increase in the CPI, and you come up to the 1.46%. I've included that now on our history slide, so we don't know what the rate is yet. But the levy at 1.46, rounded here, is 1.5. That still remains. That doesn't move our average. We're at a 1.8% average levy increase for the last 9 years. It'll be interesting to see how rate information comes in as we move our way through this. That depends on assessments. So the levy spread over all the assessment in the community turns into a rate. That's what people pay per thousand of assessed valuation. I would expect us to be relatively low this year based on that growth in the community. We don't know that yet. We'll have to wait and see. Again, the budget hearing on May 3rd. Just want to publicize that one last time. That is the last formal opportunity for the public to hear a presentation of the budget. On May 17th at the high school from 6 to 9 is the budget vote and election. We'd encourage everyone to please come out and vote. Are there any questions? Is there anything I could expand on? You have lots more detail in your packet, some more detailed spreadsheets and so on, but I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Board members, any questions? I would like to know, we did have a 2-hour workshop prior to this that was open to the public as well to discuss budget options. And as Mark also, next week we'll be having our State of the District presentation on March 10th in the 7 p.m. in the Commons. So there's great opportunity for the public to come out and comment and see how healthy our district is and all of that. So, okay.
Yep, I'll just real quick, is that we're in the library for the
Okay.
conversation, the State of the District.
Okay, so the note said the Commons, so we're in the library. Okay, good, that's probably better, more room.
If I could,
Thank you.
thank you. If I could just continue a little bit, I want to give you just a brief overview. Also in the budget is the seeker resolution for the capital project that'll be offered with this year's vote. You've seen this before, but tonight you're acting on the seeker resolution. So I just wanted to make sure that we had a last look at that. On February 9th, if you recall, the last board meeting, you finalized the scope and budget. Tonight's seeker, March 23rd. So the next board meeting, you'll need to adopt the resolutions for all of the votes, the general fund vote, the bus purchase, the capital project, and so on, because we need to begin publicizing 45 days in advance. So we're continuing through our process. Tonight's an important part where you make an environmental determination around this year's project. Just to remind everyone here and at home what that project is, it's asbestos abatement I'm sorry, that's incorrect on this slide. It's asbestos abatement at all of the schools, not just the high school in Bay Trail. It's asbestos abatement at the high school, Bay Trail, and all 4 elementary schools. It's moving and repair of the ropes course, create some renovations and movement of the fields at Bay Trail, and also creation of a baseball field at Bay Trail, and renovation of the elementary school playgrounds. You saw this slide previously. This was an example, and we had a lot of conversation at the last meeting, at the February meeting, about how that playground process has worked through. We've had a lot, Mr. McNiff has had conversations with each of the PTAs at each of the buildings. We're continuing to work our way through that process in terms of their involvement, so they're on board. I think we've done a really good job in those conversations. You haven't seen this slide, although those of you that are on the facilities committee have, and I apologize for the smallness of it, and I will forward this to you in a different light. But essentially what you can see here is a layout of Bay Trail and of the redesign of the way those fields will lay out. So you can see the creation of the baseball field sort of in the corner by the parking lot, and by the church. It's that end of the community. The movement of the fields around in order to accommodate that, and the creation of a new rectangular field in the far left-hand corner that consumes a portion of the woods in the furthest left-hand corner there. So that's the way that all ends up lining out. Total project budget of $3,199,000. The aid's going to be provided. Aid will be provided. We intend to fund this with cash. But the state provides the aid as if you had borrowed it, principal and interest. So we essentially get aid on interest we didn't spend, but they do provide it over 15 years, so there's a time cost to that money. It turns into an estimated $179,000 a year for 15 years, so the state will provide us aid of about $2.7 million of the 3.2 that we propose spending. Important takeaways would be no additional tax impact because we're funding it with available fund balance, and that it is eligible for state aid at about 74%. Were there any questions on that before? Yes.
I have a question. Well, we were at the booster meeting, and I just wanted to clarify something, because one of the parents brought up that they heard a rumor about the ropes course being
Oh,
moved
yes,
to
I'm
the
sorry.
high school?
Yes, if that wasn't in this slide, I certainly apologize. I thought it was. Yeah, move and repair the ropes course. I just didn't maybe call it out. So the ropes course right now exists in that little wooded area behind Scribner. Part of that, the high elements, will be moved to the high school. They're used by secondary students primarily anyway. The low elements are used by the elementary school students. They'll remain in that wooded area but be moved. And the thing that will be changed, the biggest change to that, is that ropes course has been here for as long as I've been here. We were a pioneer in the adoption of that sort of challenge kind of activity, but our course is quite old and it's tied to trees. That has resulted through the years in sort of the diminishment of it as trees die. As the elements become unsafe, we've had to eliminate elements, move elements. The newest way to do that is not to use trees and to use engineered poles, kind of a more permanent and a safer way to do it. So the high elements will move to the high school. The low elements won't use trees, and they'll be moved in that wood to a different area, but they'll still remain there.
So will that impact the PE program at Bay Trail? Because don't they use the high one, or they use the low one?
They use the low one.
Oh, at Bay Trail.
Mary
Okay.
Beth Walker's been part of the conversation.
I was
She's
just
fully
curious.
supportive
Just
of
because
the low.
when people asked, the other question that we got was about the portion of the woods that was going to be.
Yeah, it does consume a portion of the woods, one of the reasons that this was laid out in the way that it is we're minimizing. You can see we take a chunk of the woods, but certainly not all. We're minimizing our impact on the woods there. And that was part of our intention around that. We've had lots of conversations about where we would plant replacement trees and that kind of thing to mitigate that. Honestly, many of the trees in that particular chunk aren't in great shape. Those of you that have walked that know this isn't always in the best shape.
And I just want to say that the members of the facility committee, the engineers, architects, they worked a lot to try to move these things around to absolutely minimize the loss of woods, because there were some options that had more reductions. So they did a lot to try to keep those in place.
Yeah, one of our earlier versions of this had the baseball diamond over in that corner, and it consumed a lot of the fields. And the other thing we realized as we talked through it and worked with Pete Shambo, Mary Beth, with the principals, is that people come to baseball games. And the parking really is at that end of the building. It just made lots of sense for multiple reasons to move the field. But then that required moving some of the other pieces around as well, so.
Okay. Camille?
The other thing that people come to a lot are these soccer games, and I know like the Penn Rec program makes extensive use of those fields, so I'm wondering if that may have a little bit of an impact on their program. I'm also hoping that as this construction is done, maybe it'll chase away the geese, because that's become a serious, like, it's like a biohazard back there, and sometimes if they find a new habitat, I just wanted to echo too, that it is, I hope it's not a huge loss of that wooded area, because that's nice, and there's even a tiny little body of water that the Scribner students sometimes use to test the water, and
Right.
it looks like that was preserved, but I'm really glad that you all were
It is.
sensitive to the woods, because the people whose homes are back there too, it is a nice little wooded area.
Right,
so.
yeah, our intention is to minimize any impact to that area as much as
Good.
possible.
And it was less than 30%, wasn't it, for those of you on the facilities committee as
Oh,
far
quite
as?
a bit, yes, yeah.
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 Mr. Shambo made that point at the boosters, and we also clarified a point because some of the boosters thought the town was doing this, and no, we took credit for it, so, but I'm not sure where that came from, so we clarified that point, and so, Thanks, Mark. Any other questions for Mark on this? Okay. Thank you.
Next up is just an update on our calendar for next school year. It does feel strange on March 1st to be talking about next year, but we've been talking about it for the last 2 months. The 2016-17 school calendar does get, just so you know about the process, gets created, and the board members are aware of this, but for the public is, while each year the Penfield Central School District, like every school district in New York State, has to vote on their school calendar, in our county, it is really the mission of a Monroe County Calendar Committee that is made up of stakeholders from unions, administrators, parents, PTAs. It's a committee that gets together to look. And then really what really sort of drives the calendar is BOCES, because we do have students that attend BOCES programs, students that attend outside placements at BOCES, and so we do try to mirror their schedule the best that we can for lots of reasons. So just a couple things. I won't go through all this slide. Once approved by the board, we will put out our calendar that we have every year that looks, something like this with the colors and the dates. It's on there now for this current school year, and we'll get that up on the web and announce it through social media and on the web page. From this, there is one error that will get cleaned up. Just for the, I'm sorry, Jim. Did we fix it? Oh, it is okay here. Yes.
We fixed it.
Thank you. So, thank you to Jim and Mark for fast changing of a PowerPoint. We just had one little tweak, but this is correct there. That's on the PowerPoint. So the things to note for our community is the first day for students is Wednesday, September 7th. And that brings us through the school year. April break this year for the next school year does fall where Good Friday is also off, so it's a Friday off of school and then the following week. And I will note the one struggle we had with this calendar has to do with snow days. And so we typically try to plan for 3 or 4 snow days. We have to, by New York State, have 180 student days. And this calendar brings us to 182 student days for our kindergarten through 5th grade. So you'll notice that when it goes on the website, there'll be a little note that in the event of a 3rd snow day, we will have to make K-5 students attend school on the 22nd of June. Typically, they would be done on the 21st. So we'll create another day of school. Now, so there's good news and bad news with that. The good news is that means we'd have to have snow days. And since we're working on 0 snow days this year for students, there was 1 for staff over February break. It's a bad spot to be in. We don't want snow days because I don't want to have to extend the school year by a day. So maybe next year we can shoot on just 2 snow days and then no more. So we can work on that. And because I see the board look at me, I don't really, while I get to make the snow day decision, I do have to actually have snow on the ground to do that. And this year it's been a little difficult. So I'll have my pajamas on backwards, ice cubes in the toilet, and spoons under my pillow for tonight. But I don't think it's gonna happen. And that wraps up where we are, unless there's questions on the calendar.
Go ahead.
Calendar. Now, in the event of something like an ice storm and we had to be closed for a week or something, how would that affect, would that make a difference?
It depends. So the answer is going to be depends. So if we have to close for things out of control, like an ice storm or like the huge snowstorm that hit Buffalo last year, there is a way to basically ask the state for forgiveness. And in those major natural disaster type situations, New York State Education Department has provided relief. But that's not a gimme. The reality is, and what's not on our calendar, because we don't expect that kind of snow, and we do watch it, is if they said no, they wouldn't give us those days as sort of a pass, is that the next place after that day is you've got to find other places to make up. The only place to make up time in a calendar that we have, and this is not just us, everybody across New York State, is April break. Because you can't really, we do have certain days off that you don't need to have off, like the day before Thanksgiving, that Wednesday, but obviously you're probably not getting your 5 snow days in November. It would happen over the colder months. I have worked in districts, and many people probably have, where that has happened, and it's not a fun time, and there's talks with teachers, and we figure things out, but we would hope that if we were hit by a major snowstorm, that the state would support us. But that we do have to know that that third day, we have to make sure that we prove that we planned enough time to have, and only having 3 days planned over that is where the state typically will help and support a school district.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions on the calendar? We'll try to have those snow days during vacations again next year, if possible.
The kids don't like the snow. I heard that it doesn't count, is what I was told. I will share, just because I love sharing, and thankfully my kids don't get on the computer to watch the board meetings, but they haven't quite figured out yet that I'm the one that gets to make that call. So instead, it's like, Dad, are you going to wear your PJs backwards and put spoons under them? The next morning, when there was no snow day, Isaac, my 7-year-old, is like, oh man, I can't believe that. I wish we knew. And I was like, just don't, once he figures out it's me, we're going to have a whole nother problem. But right now, he's still under the impression that it's the snow day fairy that makes that happen, so.
Some
Okay.
people might enlighten them, just.
We'll keep working on it.
Thank you.
We're on page 3 of our agenda, board members, under board business, and we have had a lot of conversation, heard a lot about the scope and budget for the 2016 capital project, and at this point, we'll move to make that a formality. The District Facilities Committee has reviewed and recommended a capital project to be a separate proposition at our May 17th budget vote. As we heard, this comprises asbestos abatement at all schools, move and repair the ropes course, renovate fields, and create a Bay Trail baseball field, and renovate elementary playgrounds. The final recommended budget for this, as we saw up on the screen, was $3,199,000. If I could have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approves the scope of work and budget as described above. I have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments? All those in favor? Thank you. Alongside this proposition, when you have a capital project vote, we have to put out a what it's called SECRA resolution. It's potential environmental impact on school district construction projects. So in the past, this was a responsibility of the state. Now this process is our responsibility. In this case, we're requesting voter approval of the capital project, as we mentioned, and the budget, as we just discussed, is approximately $3,199,000, and this resolution will be presented to the voters on May 16th. This is a Type 2 action, which is determined they do not have a significant impact on the environment. They do not require completion of an environmental impact statement, and we've done some of those in the past. This resolution that we'll be doing confirms that the proposed project is a Type 2 action and that no further action is required, obviously due to the fact there is no environmental impact. Nonetheless, we have to do a resolution for a Type 2 action as follows. Whereas the voters of the Penfield Central School District will be asked to approve a proposition authorizing the 2016 capital improvement project consisting of asbestos abatement at 6 district schools, repairs and upgrades to elementary schools' playgrounds, upgrading existing physical education and recreational fields at Bay Trail, including a new baseball field and rope course renovation movement at Bay Trail. And whereas the school district has submitted or will duly submit a scope of the proposed project to the State Education Department, identifying the nature and scope of the proposed action, we therefore be it resolved by this Board of Education as follows. According to the regulations of the New York State Education Department, the Penfield Central School District is primarily responsible for determining whether an environmental impact statement is required under State Environmental Quality Review Act and the regulations of the Department of the Environmental Conservation of the State of New York, and for otherwise making necessary determination for findings under SECRA prior to taking any action with respect to this project. Based on a review by the Board of Education of this project, the Board hereby declares itself lead agency to the extent necessary for this purpose and hereby finds that the proposed action constitutes a Type 2 action. as defined by the secret resolutions and therefore is not subject to any further review by the school district. This action consists of routine activities of an educational institution as well as replacement, rehabilitation, upgrades, or reconstruction of a structure or facility on the same site. A copy of this resolution will be placed on file in the office of the district clerk, will be available for public inspection during business hours. This resolution will take effect immediately. This does require a roll call vote by the district clerk. Marcia? Motion? And a second?
Second.
Okay, and we do need a roll call individually on this.
Mrs. Nasra, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mrs. Rutan? Aye. Mrs. Dean? Aye. Mr. Etheridge?
Aye.
Mrs. Baviers?
Aye.
Mrs. Chilsey? Aye. Mr. Piper?
Aye,
7 in favor.
and it is approved. Thank you. Additionally, under financial items, we're required to do an adoption of a tax levy limit. And as we all know, in 2011, the state legislature and the governor established a property tax cap on the amount that a school district's property tax levy can increase each year. This law requires school districts submit to the state controller, the commissioner of education, and the commissioner of taxation and finance any information necessary for calculating their tax limit for the upcoming school year no later than March 1st. The comptroller also developed a web tool that will allow districts to satisfy this reporting requirement via a single online submission. Based on the information and guidance available at this point, which we've heard a lot about tonight, the 2016-17 levy limit for Penfield has been calculated as set forth below. Resolved that the Board of Education of the Penfield Central School District hereby approves the submission of a tax levy limit of $60,715,531 as calculated in accordance with guidance set forth by the State Controller, the Commissioner of Education, and the Commissioner of Taxation and Finance. This tax levy limit represents an increase of 1.46%, and be it further resolved that the tax levy limit plus all exclusions as set forth in the law are hereby established at $60,715,531. This maximum levy increase after exclusions represents an allowable increase of 1.46%. If I could have a motion, a second, that this be approved.
So moved. Second.
Any questions, comments? All those in favor? Thank you. We also have on the docket a renewal of a contract with Delphi Drug and Alcohol Council. We contract with Delphi for the provision of 2 substance abuse counselors, with 1 counselor located in the high school and 1 split between 4 elementary schools. This contract has been in place for several years and is recommended for renewal. Resolved that the Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to finalize contract terms and enter into a contract for services with Delphi Drug and Alcohol Council for substance abuse counseling education services for the 2016-2017 year at a cost of $68,016. If I could have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Just a comment on the terrific work they do.
Oh, yeah.
Ted Amon and Diane Marion. They just do a fabulous job. You know, and for Diane to be split in all 4 schools, and Ted, the work he does at the high school. And all these years, you know, we renew their contract, and they're fantastic. So.
Yes, and I would agree, and the renewal has not been that much more every year. It's, probably been less than inflation in that sense, so that's a great comment. Thank you. Camille, anything?
I agree. I hear great things, too. Can I just ask, just because to ask the obvious, we have high school and 4 elementaries, but what happens at the middle school?
Sure. So part of that is we've had, it's been a long history of how this has worked out. So at the high school, or at the middle school, there are 6 counselors and additional mental health providers that do support, as well the health teachers that are currently there. They do some programming around drug and alcohol counseling. I will tell you that it's something that we continue to look at. We've been very fortunate the last couple of years. Ted Amon has gotten approved for a yearly internship through Delphi Council. So it's an individual who is a drug and alcohol counselor but wants to also work in schools. So it's basically a student teacher but with already certified. And so his intern works at Bay Trail at least one day a week, and then with students who have identified needs around drug and alcohol. And so she'll go over and meet with those students as well, similar to how Ted Amon works with our high school students. So it is a good question that I don't have a good answer for in terms of why. It is something that we continue to review and have been over the last year. But at least in this point, knowing that the drug and alcohol counselor intern who works directly with Ted Amon is supporting individual students and as well as some group opportunities at Bay Trail has been helpful. That's new. We did a little bit last year, and this year we use that individual much more, which I think helps with our data in regards to if potentially down the road adding a full-time or part-time drug and alcohol counselor at Bay Trail. So.
The cut at Bay Trail goes back years and years and years ago and caused a lot of controversy at the time. And, we always have to, answer the same question that Camille just asked, how come we have no one at the middle school? So, I'm glad you're looking at it again.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions on the motion? All those in favor? Thank you. We have an agreement with the Penfield School Transportation Association with a proposed resolution that the board approves the agreement between the Penfield School Transportation Association and the Penfield Central School District effective July 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2019. Could I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Any questions? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. As was up on the board and we noted earlier, the 2016-2017 school calendar is up for approval by the board. If I could have a motion and a second that the 2016-2017 school calendar as presented be approved.
So moved.
Any questions or comments on that? With the exception of the snow day inclusions during vacation time. Hopefully not in April. All those in favor? Thank you. We're at President's Remarks, and I did want to note again the State of the District presentation on Thursday, March 10th in the library. And it's also an opportunity to see board members, talk to board members who will be present at that meeting. Also, due to a schedule adjustment, our board meetings are usually on Tuesdays, and our next board meeting will be on March 23rd, which is a Wednesday. So we want to note that for those of you that tune in online or come in person, and as a reminder to the board members as well. Under unfinished business, we have our board strategic plan, goals and objectives in your packet. We are now in the second phase of our planning, which is the February through May. And it is detailed out there for committees to follow the lead, get together. I know we have a lot of things going on, but there's always room for improvement. And hopefully we can wrap all of these up by May as we move forward. So does anyone have anything to add on behalf of any of the task force or committees since the last time we discussed this? Okay. I would like to now have Mark Elledge comment. The Monroe County School Boards Association, of which we are a member, had a trip to Albany on Sunday and Monday, and Mark and our superintendent, Dr. Putnam, were in attendance with around 20 other members of the Monroe County School Boards Association. This is a very important event that we go down to Albany in the midst of organized chaos, I guess you would call it, when there's a lot of other groups that are out there as well looking for certain things. So, Mark, would you like to give us an update?
Certainly. As John said, that we went in conjunction with the Monroe County School Board Association. This year we teamed up with the New York State School Board Association and did a joint session. Over the course of the 2 days, we were able to meet with a number of people, including the Deputy Secretary for Education and the Assistant Counsel for Education, so we were able to meet with Governor Cuomo's direct representatives, as well as legislative representatives, including the education chairs for both the Assembly and the House, and then our local representatives. We met with Assemblyman Mark Johns, Senator Funke, and Senator Robach. And it was really nice that they were able to spend time with us. They spent a fair amount of time. We talked about a lot of the similar issues we talked about in other years, funding, the gap elimination adjustment and trying to eliminate that, and then the foundation aid formula and trying to reinstate that formula, which is essentially a schedule for increase in foundation aid over time. And along with that, we talked about the cost of regulatory requirements. One thing that's come up that's emerging is the cost of supporting students that are English as a new language learners, where we have to provide co-teaching for those students, and that is a cost, as well as the cost of minimum wage. The conversation is really not about whether or not we should raise the minimum wage, but how that cost is borne. That's a significant percentage increase in minimum wage, but we are still capped as far as the kind of levy we can raise. Along with those things, all those regulatory requirements are usually put in place for some reason. And what we want to try to do is start, and we've been doing this, is talking to these people and saying, if you put it in place for a reason, then create a threshold. Don't just make everybody do it. And we've heard in the past these blanket statements about schools and districts. And Monroe County is a very high-performing district. All the schools do very, very well. So if they put some kind of threshold, some kind of level of need, if we meet that threshold or exceed it, then that regulatory requirement should not become a burden upon us. If we can't meet that threshold, then we should have to meet that regulatory requirement. So we're trying to get them to think about, if there's a need, then put the threshold, and that will help reduce the burden on us in the future. But it was very beneficial. The representatives were very supportive. We always get a great reception, and we will continue to do this again at least once or twice next year.
Okay. Dr. Putnam, any additional comments?
No, it was just nice to have a traveling companion with Mark Ellis, so I appreciate you being there. And I do think that, this is only the second time I've done this trip. Last year I had the honor of going as well. But they want to hear from us. They really do. And they want to hear from all community members. And so, don't hesitate to pick up the phone and call or email and do what you need to do as well. I think it's important, but I just felt that they definitely were listening this time, and that makes me feel good. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. And Mark and Catherine are on the Monroe County School Board Association Legislative Committee as well. I say this every year, but we all receive things in the mail from our state senator and our state assemblyman. And there's always a way on there to comment or to call and leave a message. And the best thing you can do is just leave a message that says, please restore our full funding. It's a very simple message that we can get out to the public. And if they hear a lot of that, it helps get attention, because when we're there, they know we represent school districts and parents, but they love to hear from parents as well. So I think that's important. And also, speaking of hearing, Camille is chair of the Monroe County School Board's Information Exchange, co-chair, and the two regents will be coming to a meeting we just heard, which will be great. Wade Norwood and Andrew Brown, who are two local regents, which is a great idea for that committee to have them there. And we're pretty fortunate. There's a lot of areas in the state that do not have a regent, much less two regents. So they're going to be coming to one of our meetings and, as usual, answering any questions we may have about all the changes that are going on in their leadership and their ongoing discussions with the legislature, let's put it that way. So, yes, question?
Were you going to move on from that?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I just wanted to thank Mark and Dr. Putnam for going on that trip to Albany. That was a very big undertaking. It was an overnight trip, 2 days out of your life, and not everybody, no, really, it's, to go to Albany and to go to bat for our needs, and that's a big deal, and takes a lot of time and commitment, and I appreciate the fact that both of you went, so I wanted to say thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And As you know, it kills me that I couldn't go, because, you know, I'd love to do that and give the Capitol tours and everything,
Yeah,
but...
Mark and I had to find our way around the Capitol. When we went with you, you were able to sort of
I forgot to
close your
call
eyes and show us
ahead.
around.
I forgot to call the state police ahead of time on that one, but I will be there. One of the twins had a scholarship interview down south, so, you know, we have to go for that call, and...
Family first.
But we'll be visiting legislators' offices after the budget. And the indication is still that the budget will pass on April 1st?
Yeah, there was no mention of any kind of delay. I think they're going to really try to move it through, and it sounds like with minimal encumbrances to the budget, like we've had in previous years.
Okay, great, thank you again. The one last item I wanted to mention, as board members, the Monroe County School Board Association also distributed this week a document we put together called the ABCs of Assessments. And this is really to help board members completely understand the history of assessments and an up-to-date document on assessments, and also something that can be passed down to the school groups, the PTAs, et cetera, because assessments is an ever-changing moving target, the way it's been, and we think we're over the hump in a lot of this, but it's a great document that bits and pieces can be passed to any of the groups, PAB, et cetera. So hopefully you all had a chance to look at that, and particularly for our newer board members around the county, it's a very valuable tool. Do we have anything else to come before the good of the order? If not, I'll look for a motion to adjourn at 8:03 p.m. All those in favor? Thank you.